Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing today? Awesome. So today, I'm going to be talking about 30 charts that'll change the way you do marketing. Most of you guys in here are B2B or B2C? B2B, raise your hand. I'm assuming mainly B2B. B2C? All right, well, I have data for both of you either way. And the reason I picked this topic, because every year at Inbound they ask what I want to talk about, we've been noticing a trend. Companies, especially in today's world, when it comes to AI and things changing so fast, they're reading articles, they're watching YouTube videos, they're hearing at conferences about all this new stuff and all these new tactics. They're learning the tactics. They implement the tactics in their business some of the times. And most of the time, they don't achieve the growth that they were looking for. You guys agree with that? Not getting the growth you're looking for, but you're putting in all the effort? That's what a lot of companies are facing. And what I want to do today is break down what's actually happening in the marketing landscape, because people are actually looking in the wrong area. And then that way, you'll know what to do, so that way you can grow faster. So my name is Neil Patel. I'm the co-founder of NP Digital. We're a global ad agency, and we see tons of data on what's working, what's not, and where things are going. And everything most marketers knew about is pretty much being disrupted, obviously by AI, and that's what everyone's talking about. But there's a lot of opportunities outside of AI as well as within AI. So the first big misconception that we're seeing is people are saying AI search doesn't drive traffic. And although that's true, who cares about traffic? You care about revenue. So in this chart, both B2B and B2C, you're seeing companies that are investing in AI search or AI optimization, or I think at HubSpot they use AEO as a vernacular, and traditional SEO. As you can see, the companies in this group, in both groups, they're investing heavily in both AI SEO and traditional, and they're getting more organic traffic from the traditional search engines. AI isn't even driving 1%. But look at the conversion numbers. And the conversion numbers, more particularly, I actually broke it down by a percentage of revenue. And this is for digital revenue. We excluded any businesses, their revenue from offline. AI is driving, for this group, 9.7 in B2B and 11.4% in B2C of revenue. You're not going to get the traffic that you're looking for from AI platforms, but the conversion is extremely high. So you got to look at it as a way to generate a lot of top-of-funnel interest, because that's what people start using AI with, and I'll show you some data on that. And its conversion rate is extremely high. So in your analytics, when you're not seeing much AI traffic, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be focusing on it. And it also doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing traditional SEO, because there's still a ton of revenue to be made. And if you want to get cited by ChatGPT, you got to do two things. One, make sure you have a Wikipedia page. And two, blog. This time at Inbound, because I've been at many of the last Inbounds for I don't know how many years, people have been telling us that they're not blogging as much because it doesn't drive the traffic that it used to. But if you don't blog, you're not going to get included as much in ChatGPT. Blogging is super important. You may not get traffic like you used to, but it does drive revenue. And what people get wrong with ChatGPT is most people, when you compare it to traditional Google search, use it for top of funnel. But if this is how they're finding out about your brand, it can also lead to conversions as well, so you cannot ignore top of funnel. It doesn't have as many transactional searches percentage-wise as Google, but they do convert because they're learning about you first through top of funnel, and then later they make their decision. Now, speaking of search, where everyone is getting wrong right now is they talk about Google, and what's the other platform they talk about search? ChatGPT, right? But no one's talking about Instagram or Snap or Amazon, and I have some stats about this. But Google, which is still growing, people are saying Google is dead, they're actually more popular today than they were a year ago. And they control roughly 27% of the search market. But 6.5 billion searches happen on Instagram every day. Sure, most of those searches is people looking for friends. Then the next big group is content. And some of that content, and I have the percentage breakdown in a bit, is actually B2B. And of course, a lot of it is B2C. But even Snap and YouTube and LinkedIn, people don't look at these platforms as search when their users are searching. This is the amount of times per day, and it's in billions. You look at LinkedIn or YouTube, that number's 3.3 billion. LinkedIn, 3.2 billion searches a day. That's a lot. You got to optimize your content. This is where we're seeing a lot of large corporations do, but not really a ton of SMBs. When I mean SMBs, companies doing million to like 100 million in revenue. Now, when you're creating content for these social sites, of course, videos get more views than anything else, has more engagement. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't create text-based articles, because text-based articles is what a lot of these LLMs are pulling from. And instead, you should look at content as how can you repurpose? How can you create one piece of content, make it an article, video, a podcast, images, so you can do it all at once and get more traction. And when you look at the content types, yes, videos have the most engagement, but when you look at views to share rate, video beats out everything. 2.92. Videos get shared 8x more than blog posts. That's kind of crazy to think about. The attention is still on the social web. Even for B2B, we see a lot of consumption. My agency, we make most of our money from two main categories, B2B and fintech. And I'm telling you, the amount of revenue we see companies driving, these are publicly traded companies, and even mid-sized companies doing 50, 100 million a year in revenue from a lot of these social channels, from video content and just optimizing for them, is huge. And when you look at engagement rate by content type, the obvious is how-tos. It's boring, it's ugly, it's existed for a long time, it still works. That is where the revenue is being generated when it comes to engagement and then getting those people to eventually convert. But here's the kicker. How many of you guys focus on YouTube as the most common channel that you consume videos on? All right, very few people in the room if you look around. How many of you would you say Instagram? Raise your hand. TikTok? LinkedIn? All right, here's the crazy part. We started looking at long-form videos, and we started looking at the same pieces. We had quite a few people in this study, where companies that were sharing their data. If you add up the time people spend watching videos, that same video on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, it still doesn't make up the amount of average watch time people spend on YouTube. Consider publishing your content first on YouTube, then the rest of the platforms. We also find that even if your view count on Instagram and LinkedIn, and this is why I bring up YouTube, because a lot of times they count views differently and it'll show up 2-3 times higher on those other social platforms, it still doesn't drive the same amount of conversions as YouTube. You've got to double down on YouTube. It works really well. Now, speaking of the social web, a lot of companies ignore Snap and Pinterest, especially in B2B. And even in B2C, they ignore them. But when we look at social media users, when they discover a product or a service to then purchasing, Snap and Pinterest have the highest conversion rates. They won't drive you the volume that Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram or TikTok will, but they convert really well. And here's a caveat, like everyone tells me, Snap's for kids. Well, those kids are people our age who have now grown up and they're in the room. Snap's audience spends money. The young audience is actually more so on TikTok. Now, when you want to look at lead quality for both B2B and B2C, here's a breakdown. The left chart shows you which social networks have the highest or produce the highest lead quality. Not necessarily quantity. This is quality, right? And the right chart shows you the type of content that generates the most product and service revenue, such as technical content, or webinars, or case studies, or beginner type content. This stuff, again, isn't sexy, but it's what's working right now. And with B2B, a lot of people are like, oh, it's only on LinkedIn. Here's a chart that I was talking about. How often are people interacting with B2B content? Instagram, 6%. TikTok, 4%. YouTube, 18%. Facebook, 8%. Pinterest, 2%. There's revenue to be had from these channels. But even though I'm talking about all these channels, I want you guys to keep one thing in mind. The unsexy channel that still wins when it comes to lead quality is still email. It really is ugly, but when you look at it, it's 11x better than social. I get people are learning about you from social and SEO and all these other channels and then eventually getting on your email list, right? Or a portion of them are. Email converts extremely well. Don't forget about it. And if you had to optimize for one thing with email, it's the sender. Remember, if you send your mom an email, you bet you she's gonna open up 100% of the times your email, assuming she knows how to log into her email inbox. Guaranteed. Why? Sender reputation. Not your score, the name. People forget about that. Build up your corporate and personal. And the reason this is important is because we're seeing that the customer journey is getting longer. In marketing, there's something called the rule of 7. Have you guys heard about that? When someone sees or interacts with the brand 7 times, they're much more likely to engage, convert, buy, evangelize. And depending on the price point, we have been seeing that trend to go up. And when we average out all the data, we're seeing the average touch point before someone purchases in today's world being a bit more than 11. That means someone needs to engage and interact with your brand 11 times roughly before they buy. So what does that tell you? That tells you Google isn't better than ChatGPT, and ChatGPT isn't better than Perplexity or Google, and Instagram isn't gonna kill TikTok. It means leverage all of them to get those touch points up as much as possible, including email. So now that we've talked about some of the things that you really need to look at if you want to grow in today's world that a lot of people aren't focusing on, we now need to talk about the new rules. So first, let's start with GEO or AEO, as HubSpot describes it, versus SEO. When you're creating content, there's some nuances. With traditional SEO, things like thoroughness are super important, as well as the quality. But with AI and LLMs like ChatGPT, they really care about the structure and the formatting. And if you don't get those right, you're not gonna do as well. Traditional SEO, they care about links. GEO, citations. If you're not getting those citations, you're not gonna do as well. This is why blogging is so important. The next thing is AI loves blogs. Look at the data here. If you want to get included in Google's AI overviews, everyone's like, you need to answer the question more directly. All right, everyone's trying to do that. They're citing facts, stats, and data, unique research, and comparisons more than anything else from what we're seeing. That's where to focus your attention if you really want to get included. And when it comes to search, everyone's complaining, oh, there's 0 clicks. No one's clicking on my website anymore. My traffic's gone down. Well, those people who don't click buy. When you look at the LLM users, majority of them aren't researching products or services, doesn't matter if it's B2B or B2C, but if you go down this funnel, certain percentage are researching products, but at the very end, roughly 14%, is actually a little bit more than that, are purchasing, some through in-store, some through direct on the website. In B2B, we're seeing mainly direct on the website, and then we're also seeing other channels like marketplaces, right? Or going to Google and doing a search and then going back to the website. It's a huge conversion channel. It's just, it doesn't show up in the data because people do the research on the platforms before they even click over to your site. And then we started taking a group of companies that weren't doing GEO or AI SEO, and we started working with them and getting them to do AI SEO. We started seeing their traffic increase, which is the bottom number. I know it's all less than 1%, but the top number is total online sales. Within a 12-month period, roughly 5.8%. Now, these companies did have a leg up because they were doing SEO before, as a quick disclaimer, but it shows you can actually get a lot of revenue from these channels. You just got to focus on it. But what do these channels really love? Perplexity, they love blogs. And getting also, if you're getting cited in news or industry-specific sites. And with Google AI, they love blog articles as well, and then mainstream news. And then product blogs, and then LinkedIn articles, all versions of blogs. Right? This is all the citation share. The big thing here is blogging may not drive the traffic that it used to, but it does drive a lot of revenue through these AI platforms, and search is all moving towards it. And we're seeing it. Search patterns are changing where people are typing in longer and longer queries. No longer focus on short tail keywords. Focus on long tail, not the head terms that are short, like 1, 2, 3 word phrases. We see this pattern already slowly starting to shift, where the majority of searches are starting to look like 10, 12, 13 word phrases. It's because you can get specific and get what you're looking for. But even if you optimize for these keywords that are long in intent, and you get traffic to your website, the wrong tone will kill your conversions. Urgency and conversational tones and informational really drive conversions. If you want to be funny or inspirational, it may motivate people or make them laugh. It doesn't drive conversions. It's really killing it. So let's talk about what you should be doing today. All right, you got some of it, but we got a few more slides to go through. The first is fear factor. I hate this. I hate that the data came out this way. It's one of my least, it's actually the chart that I hate the most on this presentation. But fear is driving conversions more than we'll ever see. Just use it responsibly. Trust is another big one. Like your mom always trusts you. But on the flip side, excitement or social proof or evoking curiosity, it's not working as well as it used to. Everyone's showing social proof these days. As seen on, cited by TechCrunch and, whatever other tech publication there is. Funny enough, I see a lot of companies being like, as seen on HubSpot. And trust is another factor. Trust and urgency. It really helps cause people to get over the line and purchase, especially with emails. It works. If I had to add one more thing in here, really build up your brand, whether it's the sender of the brand or the corporate brand. Those three things, right? Trust plus urgency. The trust is more so the brand, but it's the same thing almost. It works, and those things work better than timing. Like everyone's like, oh, you got to send the email exactly at 5 a.m. in the morning, Pacific Standard Time to get the most open rates. Trust and urgency, they win. And when you look at the AI platforms, based on what's driving traffic and what people trust the most, it's a whole slew. And you could say, oh, ChatGPT is powering some of the other ones, or Microsoft is the owner of them. People trust places like Copilot really well, and it converts extremely high for how much traffic it drives. It's not all about saying, go all in on ChatGPT. We don't know what the winner is going to be. We're in like the first inning of AI, if you want to use a baseball analogy. We got 8 more to go. So optimize for all of them, and there's some nuances, but there's also some similarities. In addition to that, a lot of companies, both B2B and B2C, don't have apps. We don't understand why. It drives high conversions. It helps with retention. It causes more people to convert. A lot of people go to B2B websites on their mobile phones. That's, of course, common in B2C. But it's around 130% conversion difference. Again, we mainly work with B2B over B2C. We do have B2C customers as well, and quite a few. But we see this data hold true. We work with some B2B brands that, no joke, they make over $1 billion in revenue from their app. It's responsible for a lot of revenue for a lot of companies. And this one comes right out of the HubSpot playbook. I skipped a chart. And one other thing is, with these AI platforms, a lot of people are using mobile devices. Desktop still rules to be the conversion king. but mobile is converting as well. You got to optimize the experience for both. And this one's straight out of the HubSpot playbook. Dharmesh Shah years ago talked about HubSpot doesn't just do freemium, they do free. The ads grader is a perfect example. So with apps like Lovable and all these new AI tools out there and Cursor, you can build an app easier than ever. So you can have a free tool for anything you want. Use the HubSpot ads grader as an example. You release something for free, and then you port them over into another product that you can end up selling them on. Now, when you release free tools, it ends up being cheaper than marketing or advertising specifically, because the most amount of money gets spent on platforms, Google and Facebook. And then it's a long tail after that. But those two dominate most the share in the whole marketing ecosystem when it comes to money being spent. If you release free tools, you'll get traffic for cheaper. And what you'll find is you'll get a lot more leads. The leads don't convert as well. But even when you add up the total number of leads with the decreased conversion rate, you're generating on average, when we ran this study, 93% more revenue. That's a lot. And one of my favorite things, and this is something that people don't like hearing, if you want to do well in today's world, your brand is your only moat. If I tried creating new shoes that are more comfortable than Michael Jordan Nike shoes, I wouldn't do as well. One, I'm not that good of a basketball player. But two, he just has a moat. It doesn't matter if my shoes look better or more comfortable. That logo, that icon, people buy it. That's brand. And when companies do marketing right, in roughly 10 years, 18.6% of their ideal customers know about them. It takes a long time to build a brand. People just don't want to put in the time and the energy. And one way you can try to do this a little bit quicker is leverage influencers. And this is the average cost. Micro influencers is where it's at. I get hit up all the time by B2B companies, like the Intuits of the world. I literally am emailing back and forth with Google right now. Companies pay influencers in B2B and B2C all day long. Even if they don't have the followers, you don't need people with as many in B2B. The followers spend much more. And we don't see a huge ROI when you're going after the big influencers. The major mega influencers, it tends to be ROI negative. If you're a big company and you just want to waste money, go for it. But for all of you, I would recommend micro and mid-size. That's the most profitable from what we see. And going back to search, I know no one cares about Google anymore. People still prefer it. It doesn't matter if it's a paid version or a free version of ChatGPT, people still prefer free Google search over the paid versions. It's the reality. It doesn't mean ChatGPT sucks. I think it's the future. Google's adapting really fast. If you talk to a lot of the older audience, they think ChatGPT is integrated within Google. Right? We know it's not, but Google has been developing their AI for a while, and they're adapting at a very rapid rate, and their product's really good. Even though you may be ingrained that ChatGPT is great. It is great. But Google is still preferred by a lot of people, and it's growing in popularity, so don't forget it. And if you want to say, hey, I prefer Google or ChatGPT, maybe this slide will change your mind. It doesn't matter what you prefer. When you look at when a company leverages 6 platforms or more, they tend to see a 7.5% higher ROI from all channels. I learned this one from Expedia. I was at Expedia's office in Canada. There was this gentleman named Tony Tai who worked there at the time. And Tony worked with a lot of brands at Expedia, because Expedia owns like Hotels.com and Travelocity and Trivago and TripAdvisor. Some of them got spun out, but you get the point. They own a lot of travel brands, and I'm assuming you guys, half of you booked your tickets on one of them to come here. And Tony said something interesting to me. And I was like, what's interesting? He's like, dude, we have so many brands that we ran a fun experiment, because most people already know our brands. And I was like, okay, what was the experiment? He's like, we started going omni-channel and leveraging TV and radio and Google ads and Facebook ads and email and all the channels at once. Even though these brands were already well known, when we did multiple channels and a lot of them, It rose the ROI of all the channels by almost 10% or somewhere around there. And they tested this with multiple brands. They would turn it on and off, and the results were crazy. So then we started testing it with companies that weren't as big, and we saw great results. It does work better. And I wanted to leave you on that because it doesn't matter if someone says this AI platform is better or this social network is better or this search engine, because at the end of the day, leveraging them all, especially the ones where your customers are on, and you shouldn't go after all, but at least all the ones your customers are on, that's what's going to drive the most ROI. And last but not least, I should have put this slide first. I'm so sorry because most of you guys were raising your hand. I'll tell my team shame on them because this probably would have saved you guys a lot of pictures. I'm so sorry. But I'm not really sorry, but you guys get the point. You guys can have access to all the slides and the charts. I wish you the best of luck. And really on a final note, I know many of you guys know this data. I know you guys want tactics and say, oh, do this step by step. The biggest problem we see with the companies in the room and really everywhere globally, it's not the tactics that are the issue. They're spending time on the wrong things. Because it doesn't matter how good you are at executing. If you're executing on the wrong things, you're just not going to see the revenue growth compared to the competition. You may be happy with 10, 20% growth, but why should you be happy when someone else is growing at 50, 60%? It's like one time my team told me, congratulations, Neil. We're the 21st fastest growing company in the United States according to Inc. magazine. And you know what I said? 21's a useless number unless you're playing blackjack. It really is. We weren't number one. Now, I'm still happy I had to tell them, yay, good job, because people like that. But the point I'm getting at is you can always do better. You just got to focus your energy and attention in the right places. And that's the whole purpose of this presentation, because I talk to so many of you guys when I walk around. The attention is being spent on the wrong areas. Yes, use AI. It is the future. But in most companies, and I bet you, if I ask this question, right, look around the room. How many of you guys use AI? Almost everyone. How many of you have seen direct revenue growth of more than 5% from using AI? Direct revenue growth that you can attribute. Look around the room. Barely any people are raising their hand. How many of you can see direct revenue growth, forget 5%, because of AI that you can track? Raise your hand. Look how many people around the room are raising their hands. AI is the future. It is not going away. But a lot of people are focusing on this shiny object instead of where the revenue is really being made. Don't ignore AI, but don't ignore the old, boring, ugly stuff that generates revenue for corporations. Thank you guys very much.